Hi everyone, welcome to Choral Clarity's live discussion here. I know a lot of you are going to be watching this later, but I figured I would give you a little bit of thought before many of us start on Monday with our long-term distance learning plan. I know some of you have started already. We started a few weeks ago, but then we had a vacation and things changed. So this is our real starting point of distance learning. So if you look, this is a nondescript room. My wife and I decided with our kids, we live in Manhattan, that this would not be a great time to be in Manhattan. So we picked up and we rented a house in the Poconos, a big house in the Poconos, which is, every house is big compared to our 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. So we moved out here, and I figured, well, now that I have the space, I can do a little bit of Q&A, and speak to you guys. And then I realized, as I was looking for a spot, there was no spot in this house that was quiet. So I found a closet attached to our bedroom where I don't think we can hear my 8-month-old crying while my daughter is watching Frozen 2 for the third time in the last 2 days. So anyway, with that said, I wanted to talk a little bit about distance learning. I've shared 2 blogs so far. I've got a few more coming as I receive emails and questions regarding this topic. And I want to address a few things that I find important. I personally am finding this a little bit overwhelming, distance learning, especially since it's unfolding little by little. First we had 1 day off from school, and 2 days, and 3 days, and then it was a week, and now it was 3 weeks, and now it's 4 weeks. And so there's a lot of confusion as to, well, what are we supposed to do? What's our end game? What's our long-term goal? Very, very confusing stuff, and I find it overwhelming. On top of the fact that it's constantly changing what we're expected to do as teachers. I know in my district it's changed from, they wanted video conferencing, and then they didn't want video conferencing. They wanted us to have daily assignments for our students, and then they didn't want us to have daily assignments. So I'm sure a lot of you are going through this confusion that's happening everywhere, and it is stressful. It's stressful for me. I'm sure it's stressful for so many of you out there. So what I really want to do is have a discussion, share some ideas about what I'm thinking, and if it helps you a little bit, that's great. I would love to get comments and help this to become a dialogue. So let's talk first of all. I'm going to address some of the questions that I've been asked. I wrote them down so I can address them. First of all, what's our ultimate goal? What's our ultimate goal during this time? I have a good friend of mine who's a foreign language teacher, and his textbook is online, and he's able to draw from the same textbook, use examples, engage the students. Yes, they can't have a group discussion, a collaborative discussion, but they probably could over video conferencing, but just generally speaking, he's got the material and he's able to do a lot of the same things he could do in the classroom. We don't have that ability. Our students can't just form a choir. We can't stand up there and give them, be the conductor and conduct them. It's a different world. So the question is, what are we really trying to do here? My gut tells me at the core that our goal is to find a way to build our community, rebuild the community. Our community was hit. These students came into our classroom every day to connect to one another, connect to us, to feel like they were part of something that was greater than them, to be accepted, to feel socially accepted. For many of our students, this was their home away from home. This was their place where they felt they could be who they wanted to be. So what can we do now that that's been torn away from them? Now, we might have limitations in technology. We might have limitations in what our district is allowing us to do or the amount of contact time we can have with our students. But I think the starting point is the same starting point that many of us have in our classrooms. How do we create a safe environment where students can feel good about themselves, feel connected to one another, and build this relationship between us and our students and between our students and each other? So that is the core for me when I'm thinking about what I intend to do. Now from there, well, what do we do? Is it just a love fest? Are we just trying to have, a warm, engaging environment? Well, no, of course, we want to be teaching our students. But what can we be teaching our students? And that's where we have to rethink the whole process of learning. We can't say, well, we're not in choir, so what's the next best thing? How do we make it look like the choir? How do we make it sound like the choir? Why don't we pretend that our concert is really going to happen in May or in late April? If we think like that, we're really doing a disservice to our students, because there's a great likelihood that there's not going to be a concert. So many of the students are not going to be interested in just learning concert music on their own and then being graded on it and only to never have a concert. To me, I think that there's a lot more that can be done. So let me pose a few thoughts. First of all, after we build a community and we continually think about creating a community, we could, number one, start working on building skill sets. So there are ways that we can engage our students with ear training, with sight reading, with note labeling, where they're developing those kinds of skills. There are so many different ways. If you have a Google Classroom, it's very easy. It's cohesive to put stuff in there and to assimilate. If you've got Sight Reading Factory, I wrote a whole blog on how to give assignments out there. I prefer smart music with my beginning students, but there's a huge learning curve for teachers. So if I were doing this for the first time, Sight Reading Factory is a great place to start. It's really, really easy to use. And you can set really, really low expectations. It's just pass, fail. Just, give the students an assignment and ask them just to do it. And they can do it as many times as they want. And if they submit it, they get full credit. You don't have to make it scary. But you could do things simple as sing a scale and tune and have them submit it and give them feedback and let them send it back and go back and forth. Or have them sing a major triad. You sing it first and have them sing it back. Or you sing a major triad followed by stepwise motion. Maybe do, mi, sol followed by do, re, mi. It sounds like it's really simple, and for some students it will be simple. But you can give assignments like that. So Karen says, I try to think of things that I already want to teach students and assign those things. Great. Yeah, exactly. The concept is really, how do we propel forwards? Not how can we give work so we can fulfill our job. I received an email today from somebody who asked, well, how do we give work that isn't busy work? Which is such a great question, but of course the answer is taking one step back. It's don't give busy work. Don't give anything that you don't find value with. So like Karen, what you just said is exactly right. It's got to be something that is right up your alley that you think is going to help your students to improve. If you can give a video, if you can make a little video, kind of just, whether it's a YouTube video or something, where you just explain why something is important, why you want them to do that assignment, it's going to have value. So I think the why is equally important as it would be in the classroom. So Sight Reading Factory, I think, has a lot of value, especially just make it really, really, really simple. Don't make it difficult. If you've never done it before, put it on the easiest level possible. Make it do through sol, whole notes, half notes, quarter notes. really, really simple, just so students could be engaged and feel some level of success. And the grading should just be, you did it, you didn't do it. And you could give them feedback to help them, but it doesn't affect their grades. Again, pitch matching. It's really, anything, like I have an oral training sheet. If any of you want it, I'll post it right on Choral Clarity. It's simple. It just has 12 syllables written out. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. It starts on do, it ends on do, and then I just write out 12 pitches. So it could be do, mi, sol, la, re, ti, fa, re, sol, la, ti, re, do. And the students could sing through it. Now, any student that can't match pitch or can't sing a full scale or sing a scale in tune is going to really struggle with this exercise. But if they can, then this is an exercise that they could do at home. So it's another thing that you can assign, and you could give them that sheet and say, complete any one of these exercises and submit it, and you're going to get full credit no matter what. So to me, you're developing their ear, and you're developing their reading. You can I use Sight Reading Factory for this next thing, but you could do it yourself. Write out 8 measures and have the students label the solfege on the bottom. So they write D for do, R for re, M for mi, and so on. Underneath the pitches, it's going to start and end on do. And I always tell them to write out just the D or the R or the M rather than the whole word, because if they write out the whole word, it slows them down. Once they write a D, they know it's do. So I'm trying to train them to move fast. On top, I have them label the rhythm, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, or 1 and 2 and 3 and, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And they have to account for every rhythm, every single syllable. So for example, if it's in 3 beats in a measure and there are 8th notes in it, every measure should have 1 and 2 and 3 and. Next measure, 1 and 2 and 3 and. Every measure has the ability, it has every beat accounted for. So if there was a dotted half note in 3/4 time, they have to write 1 and 2 and 3 and with the 1 above the half note, dotted half note. So there's an example of something I would give them. Now, again, if they're getting it, in my program, I do this all the time in class, so they can do it. So I'm not going to give them 15 of them, but I am going to give them 1 and 4/4, 1 and 3/4, 1 and 2/4, 1 and 6/8. I'm going to give them pitches when they're labeling that go below the staff and above the staff, because I know that's where students have the most trouble. So that is an example of giving them something that is helpful. Now, I just started with skill building ideas, okay? And I could go more into depth on these things, but that's just one side of what we're trying to do. Building community, skill building. And then the last part, let me say one more thing about skill building. You could also teach them solo repertoire. That's another great example of this is an opportunity to teach solo repertoire. Why couldn't you hand out the music to a piece? You could sing through it if you want to. You could have a recording. You could do, if it's in another language, German, Italian, French, you could speak it for them. You could give them, give them somebody who could sing through it, whether it's you or somebody else. Put a piano recording out there and ask them to sing, 4 measures of it, 8 measures of it. Have it in a neutral key. Do Caro mio ben in the C major, for example. You can do something like that and have them do it. And again, it doesn't have to be graded. This could be for fun. This could be encouraging. This doesn't require Flipgrid or advanced technical skills. This is something that you could do on your iPhone. You could just record a voice memo. You could send it out via email to your students. You could say, submit it to me if you're interested. So I'm going to connect that to the last part of this discussion, which is really about inspiring our students. I think the most important role that we can play right now is inspiring our students to love music, to want to create, to want to learn. It is not to give them assignments, to cover our butt, and to make sure that we look good in the eyes of our administrators. Yes, we will if we give them assignments. Probably not too many. I know in my district, if I overwhelm my students with too many assignments, I'm going to get a lot of negative feedback that I'm taking away from other teachers, from AP classes, from Regents-bearing classes. In New York State, we have Regents, which are our state tests. So it's important that we give assignments. It's important that we encourage our students. But the most important thing in my mind is that we motivate our students to want to do more, not to have to do more. I'm seeing a lot of great assignments that fellow music teachers are posting everywhere, whether it's in the Choral Clarity group or in the I'm a Choral Director group. Seeing lots of great ideas. But the problem that I'm finding is if I assign them to my students, they're going to resent them, because the first thing they're going to say is, this is choir. Why do we have to conduct a piece? This is choir. Why do I have to do a research project on a conductor, on a composer, on something? And you know, we can always say, well, that's part of choir, but it's not, because we're not doing that in the classroom normally. We're not doing that. If we're not requiring of them there, then to make them do these new things will make many of them resentful, and those who are less motivated will become even less motivated than they were in the first place. So what I think we can do is we can come up with inspiring ways to bring them on board. So what are some ideas? And I think this is a great discussion in the Choral Clarity group. What are some of the ideas that we could come up with? Let me give you a few. First of all, I saw a few choral directors post themselves singing in an a cappella platform, using the a cappella app or something like that. The a cappella app is the easy app. I'm not sure if you could do it on a cappella app, but you could do it on other apps too. What they did was they took a choir song and they sang one part, and then they passed it on to another person in the choir who sang a second part, who passed it on to another person who sang a third part. And by doing that, there was a collaborative effort by students. Now, this was done by teachers to show their students what they can do. So that's one great example. Starting by singing a part and passing it on, passing the torch. Not bringing it to the choir director, but just passing it on to the different students. That to me is a great idea. Another great idea is to challenge the students. Say, who can use the a cappella app or the equivalent app and sing a 4-part arrangement of, and you can either pick a song you're learned in class, or a new piece, or create a new piece that's under a minute long. So that's another great way of creating and motivating. Have a little contest, see who can do it. Maybe you could post them in Google Classroom or find a place to post it. Another thing you could do, you could have some kind of composition competition. See who wants to compose something that somebody else can sing. These are all creative things we can do. You can create a list of choir pieces that they would love to learn, and they can create a Google spreadsheet, and maybe each person that wishes to could post a song or a recording that they've heard on YouTube or on SoundCloud or wherever they may have heard it, and explain why they love the piece. They could post it in Google Classroom. These are all things that will inspire our students to do more, but to do what they want to do. This is really a time for them to explore more than a time for us to scramble and come up with things that we think will suffice to meet the curriculum standards. Because remember, this is not choir. We are teaching choir. We are hired to teach choir, but we are not teaching choir right now. We are teaching our students online through distance learning. But this is not choir, because a choir is a bunch of people who sing together. So we want to find ways to inspire them on their musical journey. And we do that by, number one, building community. Building our community again, rebuilding it. It's like we're starting over again. It's almost like, think of it like online dating. Not that I'm online dating. I'm married. I have a beautiful wife. Sorry, babe, if you're watching this. But if you were to do online dating and not see the person, and you're talking to them and talking to them and talking to them, and then you meet them in person, it's going to be a brand new experience from the second you meet them. That's kind of what's happened here, but in reverse. We were in the classroom for all this time. We built this relationship. Students knew when they walked into that room that they were going to feel comfortable. They knew that their friends were there. Well, now they lost that room. The room is gone. The space is gone. Now they have to go into the online world where there are no faces. And we have to establish this new community, this new place where they can feel like they're home. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge in itself. I can tell you this for sure. Throwing lots of assignments and due dates on them is not going to build their community. And yes, some of your top students or in your top group, they'll do whatever you ask them to do. I get that. But that doesn't mean that that's the best usage of our time, of their time, and of this medium. I think we can build our community online. We can get our officers involved. We can do all of these things. And then from there, we can give assignments that we think are useful. And we can explain why, not overload them, but give them specific tools, specific skills, specific projects, and then we can give them open-ended things, contests, competitions, challenges, things that will get them excited. And you never know what they're going to come up with. They might come up with things that are way better than we ever thought of. And that will come by expanding it and supporting them and giving them an outlet to not just show us, but to show their peers. Again, Google Classroom works, Flipgrid works. I'm sure some of you have other means as well. So with that, I hope that instead of feeling beaten down and worn out, which I think we all have that feeling, and overwhelmed by all of the amazing resources that are out there that we've never touched before, nor have our students touched. Instead of digging into those things and trying to figure out how to master these programs, I'm going to suggest that we focus on what we do best, which is connect with our students, hear them, give them a place to feel comfortable, think about things that will help them to improve their skills. Be specific and clear. Don't overwhelm them. And pose opportunities for experiences that could be collaborative, they could be performance-based, where they can share, where they can build each other up, where you can give them positive feedback, not critical feedback, and get them excited about making music again, which is, I'm sure, plaguing so many of them, that they're stuck in their houses, unable to make music, unable to share. So with that, I hope this was helpful and engaging, and feel free, let's pose, I'm going to pose some questions, and I'd love for you to share what you've done. I'd love to know what have you been doing to inspire your students. What skills do you think are most important during this time for your students to learn in your groups? Not just your select groups, but the groups of students who have maybe not completely bought in. Maybe the students that are weaker singers. What are things that you're doing that you feel good about, that you feel will put them in the right direction emotionally as much as musically? So think about those things. I'd love to continue this dialogue in the Choral Clarity group. And I'd also like to share that tomorrow I'm going to have a new blog post out on virtual choirs. It's going to be called Virtual Choirs, 2 reasons why some of you hate them. And I think it will be an interesting post, because I think there's so many polarizing, well, 2 polarizing views really. Some of you love them, some of you hate them, and I think it's a really good place to jump into and help engage a dialogue. You're welcome, Jim. Thank you, and I really hope that you all share your ideas with each other. Let's not overwhelm each other. Let's share the big picture stuff so we can all grow together. So I thank you all, and I look forward to chatting with many of you soon. Bye-bye.